If you've ever walked into a room and thought to yourself, I do not belong here, or everyone else is more qualified than I am, or they're all going to figure out I don't know what I'm doing. We know this to be imposter syndrome. Look, I've been there. I have felt like an imposter in two different worlds, in science and in music. And when I started to really understand what this feeling was, something strange came up. It wasn't just that I felt like an imposter in new rooms. I still would sometimes feel like an imposter in rooms and situations that I was quite familiar with. And that part was really confusing to me until I figured out why.
1, 2, whoo!
Welcome to Authenticity Lab. My name's Dr. Kelsey Miles. I'm a chemistry professor and a musician. This is the podcast where we run life experiments because the world makes us think that life has a right answer, but life isn't something to solve, it's something to discover. And I teach you how to think like a scientist and create like an artist because you need critical thinking skills and creative insight to really develop the life that feels like you. So let's dive in. Most of us are aware that imposter syndrome shows up when we're in a new room, we have a new role, new responsibility. Something is new in our world. And when that moment creeps up, when you feel like you don't belong, it starts to make us shrink and feel a little smaller. It is a very uncomfortable feeling. And in these rooms, we start noticing that everyone else is more confident, more experienced, and they belong. And then our brain does this tricky little dance and it switches it on you and says, you don't. You're not confident, you're not experienced, you don't belong. And it spirals and gets worse. It's in those moments that sometimes we just block off that feeling and we just put our head down and just try to pretend. And this is where fake it till you make it works until it doesn't. There's another version of imposter syndrome that I don't think is talked about enough. Most of my career has been spent as a chemist. But the moment that I picked up guitar was when that imposter syndrome got really big for me. At night, I would go do these jams and open mics. And I kind of felt like I was the nerdy kid hanging out with the cool kids. You know, I would play with musicians that had been playing since they were like 3 years old and were in these strong music families. And I just didn't have that background. I would record with musicians who were way more skilled than I was. And here I was with my own original song. And I would shrink as I was working with them. So, of course, my brain started saying things like, you don't belong here, and they're going to figure out you do not know what you're doing. What I found to be interesting is that imposter syndrome did go away with time. And the more familiar I became with the studios and the open jams and the open mics, the better I felt. But then something really interesting happened. While I was starting to feel more comfortable and confident in those music rooms, I started to feel like an imposter in the science rooms that once felt very comfortable to me. I loved going to chemistry conferences. I loved going to group meetings. I loved asking difficult questions at seminars. That was something that I felt so confident in those rooms. And then I started to not feel confident in those rooms. I started to think that everyone there who was a chemist was going to figure me out, that I wasn't a true chemist. This was really strange to me because at once I didn't feel like an imposter in those rooms, and then now I did. It led me to question, why do I feel like an imposter in rooms that used to feel familiar to me? This really led me to understand something about imposter syndrome. Sometimes you feel like an imposter because the room is unfamiliar to you. But sometimes you feel like an imposter because you are unfamiliar to yourself. You're the one who changed, not the room. And this can be really disorienting. You walk into this room, you aren't who you used to be, and you're becoming someone new. That's where I was landing when I was becoming a musician and walked back into those science rooms. The science rooms hadn't really changed. I did. And I learned something really important from that time in my life. You don't stop feeling like an imposter when you prove to the room that you belong there. You stop feeling like an imposter when you feel connected to you. If you can feel comfortable with yourself, with the idea that maybe there are things you don't know, and it's okay. Maybe there's experience that you don't have, but you want to gain, and it's okay. When you get really connected with feeling okay with yourself in that moment, there is no room that can make you feel like an imposter. Seriously, that's what shifted for me. It's not that I knew more. It's not that I belonged more. It's not that I had more experience. It was my connection with myself. And when I wasn't sure about my identity, I'd walk back in those science rooms and I would think to myself, gosh, they're going to figure out I'm a musician and I don't belong. It was me judging me. You can walk into the same room you felt comfortable in, the same group of friends you used to feel comfortable with, and all of a sudden it stops feeling comfortable. That's the moment that I'm talking about. That's the moment that we start questioning our own identity. And that's the moment that you can look at that feeling of feeling like an imposter and ask yourself, is it because this is a new room, a new possibility, a new role, or is it a familiar room that you've been in and all of a sudden it doesn't fit anymore? That means there's something with your identity that is shifting, and that deserves your attention. It's in that mode, kind of like a discovery zone. In that moment, you don't feel certain about your own identity, but it's also in that moment that you can open up to learning the most you possibly can. But what if instead of feeling uncomfortable, the moment you felt like an imposter, you started to ask yourself, what can I learn in this situation? There's a lyric in my song, Save My Soul. This is on my I Am album. And the lyrics say, I'm a stranger to myself, wouldn't recognize anyone else. And I was talking about those new rooms I was in, the new music rooms. And then I would go back to the chemistry rooms and I started feeling like an imposter. I started feeling like a stranger to myself. But really, I had just not fully integrated my new version of myself that was also a musician. And the second line, wouldn't recognize anyone else. Part of me still felt like me. So it wasn't that I needed to hustle through and fake it till I make it. What really made the change was getting curious about what was changing with myself. What if you investigated it? What if you asked, what inside me is changing? What am I discovering about myself? What old identity doesn't fit anymore? Discovery doesn't happen when you feel very certain. Discovery happens when you feel uncertain. It's in those discovery zones that you get to find out more about yourself. Let's talk about a life experiment. I want to use my 3-step framework, calibrate, experiment, optimize, and invite you to do this week or this month or this year. The next time that you feel like an imposter, try this. We're going to first calibrate. So you have this feeling, this observation comes up. I feel like an imposter in this room. Calibrate and ask yourself these 2 questions. Number 1, is it because I'm in a new room, a new role, a new situation? Or number 2, is it because I've changed? I'm becoming someone new. And then you're going to experiment. Ask yourself, what can I learn here? Not how do I prove myself or how do I belong? What can I learn here? That question is going to shift you from judgment to curiosity. And curiosity is how self-trust is grown. So if you felt like an imposter lately, just remember that there's nothing wrong with you. It could just be that you're entering a different room you're not familiar with, or it could be that you are becoming a version of yourself that's new to you. Either way, if you can get yourself from judgment to curiosity, you'll actually learn a whole lot more than just hustling through and faking it till you make it. That uncomfortable feeling you have right now is actually where you can grow the most. And in the moments when your identity starts to shift and you notice it, and you get curious and you lean in, there's something that will happen. It gets really loud, and it's the fear of what other people will think. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about next week. Why do I care so much about what other people think? But for now, go run your life experiment this week. Remember that self-trust is built one discovery at a time. Your life is not something to solve. It's something to discover. So be bold, be curious, and be you. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah, that house will always call you home.